Hello and welcome to The Dive presented by Honda Season 5, Episode 23. Freaks episode, baby! We're going to have flame all over the place. Everybody's going to be making fun of each other. Random roasts.
It's going to be great. Can't wait.
It's a surprise for everyone. You're a surprise for fans. It was a surprise for Kobe and I this morning when Mark is an absolute troll. I was literally talking to him about the dive this weekend, and I'm like, oh yeah, we should talk about this on the dive. He's like, yeah. It doesn't even mention that he's going on vacation.
Also, I drive Mark in the morning because we live right next to each other. Every time. It's a carpool where I'm the only one who drives.
You're in the car and he's the pool.
Yeah.
You're the lifeguard of the pool.
He didn't even tell me who's supposed to drive him. And so I'm waking up and I'm like, I see this message from Phreak. Oh, when am I coming in? I'm like, what the hell? I guess I'm not picking up Mark today.
You're welcome. I'm solving everyone's problems.
Exactly. Thank you, Phreak.
Yeah.
He comes in, show's already better.
Yep.
True.
Yep. Big dub. All right. So this last week, right after we did the last episode of the dive, a lot of TL news actually came out. Jatt Resigns.
As is tradition now, all the big news drops.
It was on Tuesday.
It's very unfortunate. It's just been the pattern. So Jatt resigns, cold interim head coach, and then the really unfortunate news of Santorin struggling with some health issues and Armeo having to step in for him while Santorin takes kind of some time to hopefully recover, see some specialists and focus on his health.
The ongoing saga of the Team Liquid internal struggles. We're going to have a documentary released.
Breaking Point, the sequel.
with dramatic reenactments of all the events, I hope. Honestly, though, even with all of this going on for the team, they sub in Jenkins, they sub in Armeo. Now they've got 2 Liquid Academy members, and this is another proof of concept for why you should care about your academy team, because they actually look good in there. Armeo got in, honestly, looked pretty smooth as far as incorporating him back in. Jenkins has been quite good too. So they've been able to fill in even with a lot of these struggles. We'll say that it's not, it's not optimal, of course. Jatt resigning and having coaching structure changes. Obviously, the Santorin health issues are something that you can't avoid and has to be worked around. I know migraines. I've had many people close to me with migraines have to deal with them, and it is incredibly difficult sometimes to even figure out a plan for what to do. So I'm really hoping, for a speedy recovery for him and for them to be able to figure something out.
And this is, as far as I can tell, like what was happening at the end of playoffs last split as well, right? It's why Armeo was in for the TSM series and the Cloud9 series. And kind of the sort of weird part about it is like, okay, well, here's TL, a 3rd, 4th place team, and they're still like on that cusp. I believe they're still like perfectly the bar where everyone 5th and below, they have beaten every single time. They lost to Cloud9 back in week 1. I would probably still put them above Cloud9 right now, so maybe they're the 3rd best team. I think Armeo was fine, right? Like Armeo got them to the finals. They beat TSM in the BO5 with him. They almost beat Cloud9 in the finals with him, so like that was pretty good. But Alphari's break ended yesterday, I assume, right? Like that's my understanding of that announcement. So if Alphari's feeling ready to go, like that is a difference maker, right? They're gonna go from like, yes, TL are a good team with this roster. They are good. They are not dominant. They're not the best team in the league. I talked with someone on 100 Thieves yesterday, and his opinion is like, well, we're winning the LCS basically unless Alphari comes back. Then it's the only team I care about. And so like if that happens, like I think Armeo has been fine. And I think he'll be serviceable and like TL can win with Armeo on the roster, but like the top lane is the thing I'm really curious about, because it's not like Jenkins is bad, but with Alphari they are a winning team. Like they can win the championship, as opposed to I don't think they have quite the talent for it otherwise.
Yeah. I mean it's tough, right? I think Jenkins has played really well. I think Armeo has played really well. Yeah. To me, it's more about the mental side of it. There's clearly, TL just seems like an absolute mess right now, right? Clearly there's a lot of drama. Even just from the outside looking in and not, talking about anything you've like heard as far as rumors or whatever, you can tell that there was a lot of beef between, some of the people with some of the social media posts, right? Like Alphari retweeting the picture of him and Sven, big announcement coming soon, immediately after the Jatt firings or resignation or whatever got posted, right? Like clearly there's some tension there. The fact that you're having all of these things happen all at once, like that has an effect on the rest of the team too, right? If there is frustrations about coaching, if there is frustrations about playing a player or not playing a player, then Santorin having to step out, like all these things are just like added weight onto what they're already dealing with. And to me, that was why when I saw all this on top of everything that's already been happening with TL happen, I'm like, well, you're not winning. And that's kind of like how I felt about it. If Alfari comes back, to your point, I'll definitely have to reevaluate because he was, incredible, and it does change the team. It feels bad that it's like this negative comparison for Jenkins because Jenkins has actually been good.
Yeah.
He's been quite good. And I think he should be on an LCS team for sure. But guess what? Alfari was historically good, and everyone's comparison to him is bad. So it's just kind of the way it is, unfortunately, when you're subbing in for such a good team. But Armeo really has looked good, and we'll have to see, because this weekend was like, okay, you went 2-1, but you beat the two teams you kind of expect to that are down near the bottom of the standings. You lost the TSM again, and they haven't beat any top team this whole split. And like getting third, fourth is not good when you've dumped many, many millions into your roster. And you're supposed to be going not just like contending for a championship here, but also then having success internationally.
Yeah, I mean, world spot is definitely paramount in their kind of goals for this team. I will say, I personally am actually assuming that Alfari is coming back this weekend until proven otherwise, instead of the other way around.
Yeah.
Since his break did end, and it does make me feel bad for Jenkins, because especially some of these Akali plays, and I know that there's a lot of frustration from everybody just playing solo queue and stuff just for Akali. But come on,
really good.
Especially the last Akali one where he went back in on Renekton. I forget who was playing the Renekton, but he makes him cancel like 3 autos with multiple E's and shrouding and stuff.
Yeah,
it's definitely exciting to watch.
He did it to Abadaga too. I think when they played 100 Thieves, he got the shroud cancel on the Lee Sin ult and got a solo kill on him after getting solo killed. Like he's consistently been amazing on Akali. I think he's been, just isolating to this split, like he has looked the best of anyone on Akali. He's actually been really good. His GP has been really good as well. The Lulu game was a mess, but I think that draft was just horrible. So that's another story. But yeah.
For me, it's between him and Abadaga, because I think his Akali's and Weezy were like really sick as well.
Abadaga was pretty insane.
Very good, to be clear. Jenkins was very good. One of the best.
I changed.
One of the best. Azael, one of the best casts in the LCS.
We've got Phreak for the bold statements, okay, Azael? You keep your very soft corner statements, all right?
Nice.
We got some child proofing on the desk here.
I'll play him away. I don't care. Not fair.
Honestly, though, because the subs just keep on coming, I was so hyped for contracts. And I'm a bit biased because I play games with him all the time, and I know that he has been grinding away ever since he went down to Academy. Like the other people in Discord will be playing other games, like, take a break for some World of Warcraft, or take a break for some PoE, or take a break for something else, and he's always grinding away at League, trying to get back in, trying to prove himself again. So I was just so happy that not only did he get his chance, but it was such a good game on Diana. He got to carry hard. He had some individual plays as well.
Yeah.
Yes, the Lee Sin going under tower was too far, but snap punishment there for him. So I was really happy to see that, and it gives more flexibility to EG as far as their roster as well, because that is definitely one of the teams that is always looking at the future. Peter Dunn and coaching staff, I feel like we say it every time, but they're always looking at building up new talent. What kind of things can we set up for the future?
Yeah, the fun part as well, and I felt so bad for Svenskeren, because contracts like 1v9s on Diana and beats TSM, who were like the first or second best team in the league. Like everyone's going to agree they're top 2. And then the very next game, Svenskeren comes back in. They're against an easier team. They're against Dignitas. And he's still on Diana. They get the same champion. They get weaker opponents. And he's like, I'm 1-1-0. I'm doing okay, guys. Oh, we came away with the win. It was a close one. And it's like, oh, no. This is the jungle tell you not to worry about. Like, it was so, like, if it was a different champion, it would have felt better. But it's like, oh, we just saw this.
Direct comparisons are always rough. Like if you're playing and someone's kind of hunting for your spot, and you're looking at those two games.
You don't want to play Diana. You don't want to play Diana.
It definitely feels a bit uncomfortable for sure. But I also really loved the interview that he had afterwards, and it's cool to see how much it meant to him. Right, the emotion. He was very clearly kind of overcome by emotion, holding back tears. just about how hard it has been to get back, right? And Contracts was one of those players that you go back a couple of years and people are like, this is the next big thing, right? This is the NA jungler of the future. People thought he was going to have the Blabber trajectory, basically.
I mean, before Blabber.
Yeah, he was
the original Blabber.
That's what I'm saying, is that like people thought he was going to have the trajectory that Blabber now had, right? Where he became like one of the stars of the league and became an MVP and won titles and did all these things.
Dodged that scuttle crab bullet.
Yeah, exactly. Did dodge that, but he also dodged multiple MVPs and he dodged staying in the LCS. So,
I mean,
which would you rather have?
So it's tough, right? Because he just kind of dropped off the map, and I know everyone tells me he's been absolutely smurfing at Academy. Proving Ground's doing really, really well. So with a successful game back in the LCS, they did clearly say this was just for the one game, but at the very least, I think it will make some other teams kind of perk up and take notice and say, hey, maybe we need a jungler, right? And I think that career-wise for him is going to be hopefully a really good thing.
And as a broader topic, I do like that more of the teams are taking these more wholesome approaches to substitutes. And they're like, you know what? We're going to do it as a reward. We're going to do it a much more positive tone here with Academy players playing well and getting your chance. The end goal always is of figuring out and crafting what is going to be your very best end game 5-person team.
Yeah.
So as much as I love having, the whole team behind it and being able to have all these positive emotions around subs and being able to handle it well by talking to both parties beforehand and setting them up so it's not like this shock transition. And we've had so many horror stories of changes like this. Remember, it is always still a competitive game. This is a competitive sport here where every team is trying to win. So they're trying to get more data always and do these testings.
And that's what I remember. And that's what I always feel like makes it feel a little bit fake, right? Is that it's like, this isn't a negative for Svenskeren, it's a positive for Contracts. Well, at the end of the day, you're still competing. And I get that they're rewarding a good play instead of punishing bad play. It eventually equates to the same thing, right? Like, I don't buy that if EG is absolutely smurfing in LCS and Contracts is smurfing in Academy, that you still make the swap, right? It's more like, this guy's doing well in Academy, we're not doing so hot in LCS, so we're going to make this swap. So at the end of the day, it's really the same thing. It just feels like it's been fluffed up in a nicer way a little bit. And so to me, like, if I'm the starting LCS jungler, or I'm Insanity getting swapped out for Pretty, you can't believe that if this guy doesn't absolutely, like, if this guy crushes it, that they're not going to consider doing it again or consider like reevaluating who should be the LCS starter. So that's why to me it's like, it's a nice little spin on it. I don't actually see it being any different, whether it's a punishment for the LCS player or a reward for the Academy player. It's the same thing. You're getting subbed out.
I feel like it is different, and this is a better way to do it. It's going towards the same goal, but it doesn't feel fake to me. It feels more inclusive. And again, the process is important to me because we've seen and heard from a lot of, and even since we have so many retired players now, co-streaming and talking about these things too, all of them with all their horror stories of getting benched and it being these shocking things. And, all of it feels more like a shady deal with some of these like less communicative processes. So I feel like if they're putting more effort into that process, it is a better way to go about it, even though it's the same goal.
I'll do a personal story of this one somewhat because, as we all know, like, there are limited casting assignments. Only one play I played was the World Finals, for example. Like, at least you guys can like somewhat share and whatever, but it's like, well, right now it's like me, Flowers, and Pastry. And there's only one of us doing like the LCS final or the World Final or, Quickshot or whoever, right? And it's like, if you go back like 7 years, it's like, I wasn't on any finals casts because like I wasn't very good. Just like back then, it's like, no, it's someone else. Like, Riv's going to take it or Demon's going to take it or whatever. And I'm like, okay, this is because I'm bad. And then now it's this part where like I actually feel good about how I'm casting. And it's like, okay, if Flowers gets the final instead of me or Pastry or whoever, I'm like, yeah, they're really, really good. And like, it feels different. Like, it really felt different from like 2012, 2013, whatever, where I'm like, I did the pregame analyst desk and then I'm out. See you, have fun. I'm like, Oh, I got like 2 speaking lines. Like, okay. And now it's like, oh yeah, hey, dude, Flowers is sick. Of course he gets it. Yeah, of course it makes total sense. Like, sure, no problem. So like that part does feel different, right? Where it's like, if you feel like you are playing
but you
well,
don't lose your job.
right? Well, and that's a big thing, right? It's like I'm not going down to like playing in the Academy League instead.
You're gonna
right?
cast only Academy now because this person is gonna cast World Finals. So that is an enormous difference to me.
Right. And I know, right? And you know, the more equivalent is like, well, there are 10 LCS teams, so like if Svenskeren gets traded, for example, whatever. Again, it's not exactly apples to apples, right? It's not identical, but I will say that like if you are feeling good about what you are doing, the same result is going to feel better. Yeah. Like the same result is still like, well, I'm sitting at home and I'm done at World's Quarters or whatever. Like exactly the same is going to happen in 2012 versus like 2021. But I'm going to feel way better about 2021 because I'm like, yeah, but I'm like happy with how I'm casting. And like, yeah, my coworkers are really incredible. And it's like, yeah, they deserve this.
And feeling better does matter because then your future with the team or with the other team, you know, has a much better path.
You feel good about yourself.
Yeah, great.
Right. How do you guys feel about the Honda MVP question today, which is which player has been best at adapting to the new meta Yes, there have been lane swaps. There have been a lot of solo lane talk. My pick is actually going to be Huhi.
That was my choice. I didn't think you were going to take
I like how you ask us the question and then you just answer your own question. You're like, so what do you guys think? Because I
think it's a lot of times we've asked questions and people are like, you know, struggling to come up with stuff. So I feel like you give more time. I'm helping you out here. But Huhi to me with the Ziggs bottom being able to play so many different flexible champions bottom, especially with Senna in the meta and being able to have more options as far as getting a fed champion of whatever you want. Hey, FBI did Lee Sin down there even. So that's going to be my vote. Now you're going to have to take a more generic one, Phreak.
I'll do like a quick capstone on that one and then I will move on because I have a runner up. It's not as good as Huhi. And it's because I think he played, I think what I believe are the literal 2 best champions in bottom lane, which is he has played Ziggs bottom lane, who is incredible, and said, okay, we're going to go get Kraken Slayer Senna on my team. It's going to be fine. And then he played Divine Sunderer Senna as the like support to Lee Sin, where it's actually less about him carrying. He is more supportive. He doesn't have the Tahm Kench peel, so he does the more tanky, more self-sufficient build, which is like the right build for that game context. So like, huge to see those. Like, I'm glad he's doing it. Almost no one else is, so I'm glad he is like getting an adaptation going on. Good for him. The other one I will go to is Xerxes. I think he is the best player on Immortals. He is why they are, to me, the number 4 or 5 team in the league. I think they are absolutely incredible right now. I think they can keep going up. I think that the sky is the limit for them. And he's doing his own thing. I know people are talking about like, oh, hey, Pee-wee has cool, unique builds. No one else runs Imperial Mandate Gragas, by the way. Like, I went and looked, and like worldwide, like I looked at Gold plus solo queues. I wanted to look anywhere with like remotely skilled players. There's like 30 total Imperial Mandate Gragas games from Jungle. Worldwide in like the top 40% of games, he's the only one doing it. Like this is all Xerxes solo queue games. So like that's cool to see from him. His Rumble also, by the way, incredible. Like he single-handedly makes me a Rumble jungle believer because he's actually good at it. And so he's just been great.
For me, especially when I'm thinking about flex picks and being able to run a lot of different strategies, I'm thinking Abidaga. I think that, you know, he has really like opened the door for 100 Thieves to play a lot of different styles. Obviously from the Karma to the Assassins, you know, the Akali. He's played the Control Mages really well. He's been able to play melee, you know, physical damage melee champions as well. He's played lane bullies like Lucian. He can pretty much play everything at this point, and he's actually played it all very well and in situations that made sense, right? It's like, oh, C9's going to Kindred Lulu. Well, guess what? Last pick of Zir just ruined your draft, and he's scooping you out of every single Kindred ult, right? And this kind of stuff I just think is so valuable to be able to have someone who really can play all the different styles well, I think is rare, especially within the same span of a handful of weeks, right? Because when you think back to a lot of other like great mid laners, all the great mid laners can play a bunch of different styles, but they don't often do it all within a short span of time. It's like they're focusing on one style within, you know, a handful of weeks generally, or even months. So that to me feels somewhat unique in that he's really playing at the highest level and bringing out all kinds of stuff.
He has certainly been one of the main parts why 100 Thieves are doing so well.
Yeah.
On the next patch, there's going to be a lot more options too. I know, Phreak, me and you were talking about at the end of the day yesterday, just on broadcast, but 11-13 is really exciting because yes, Hullbreaker is going to be in the game and there's going to be more split pushing options. Me personally, though, as far as my solo queue that I've been getting into thus far, I always have been hyper focused on stats and whenever an item, this one's going to be Stridebreaker, gets 200 health added to it. Yes, you took away the dash, but as soon as I saw that, I got so excited as far as bruiser champions. And this is coming from a person who switched to playing Udyr for like 3 years in a row because before Cinderhulk or before the Turbo Chem Tank and everything like that, just because it was such a good, stat check champion. Stridebreaker right now, I've been trying to fit it on any, attack speed focused kind of bruiser champion. Nocturne is the clear choice. Yes. Because Nocturne's up there. It works perfectly. And Nocturne actually didn't need the dash, since when you ult in and you start your fear tether, you still get the massive slow and you're sped up yourself. So as long as you have good positioning, you can still edge towards the other side and a flash will not break the tether.
Yep. Tether range is more than flash as long as you can keep up.
And you have got a huge speed differential, so it should be doable in most cases. But I've also been testing it on other just champions that are super strong right now, like Zen, which makes use of very similar stats. I actually think that it is currently his best mythic as well, because he doesn't need the dash, obviously. The slow does help, but those have been the ones I've been going to. I still have my fiddlesticks side gig for my AP threat, but I've been focusing on Stridebreaker stuff for the other stuff to try and gain some rating quick.
Nice. I played a Tahm Kench game and wanted to check that out. I feel like it's just remove it from the support pool. It's not a support anymore. Yeah. It's absolute garbage as a support. The ultimate really does feel just insanely trash now. I will say that because to me, it's just like, and maybe it's just a mindset thing because I'm so used to having access to this, very, very early and often. And the first time you use the Tahm Kench ultimate, it's like, what, a 2-minute cooldown now? Yeah. And so even using it offensively feels kind of weird. Your wave clear is hurt a fair bit by that. Like even just pushing out waves, like Devour the Cannon, spit it on the wave for top lane, that is gone. It's kind of, I'm not even sure exactly how you're supposed to do trades in a lot of these situations because like I've only gotten the one game in so far, but it felt like a lot of times even when you land your knockup with a W, you're just gonna lose the trade and then you have no real way to go out. So it felt a little bit strange. I do think that your engaged potential and in like a skirmishy fight or like a chase down situation is much better. So like if you're in a situation where you want to move and invade with your jungler and you're coming from top lane, like the W can be really valuable. You do have a very consistent like kind of like engage tool over walls, invading a red buff and doing these kinds of things. Like so that's pretty interesting. But I think he's going to need some buffs is my read before he really gets going much. Like from the win rate data I saw, he went down a fair bit in like every role.
Sure.
And also even just playing him, he didn't really seem like I could think of any situations that I would particularly want to play him in top lane because it's like what is he offering that other people aren't? Like, are you really still picking him for the ultimate, which is this 2-minute cooldown? Maybe once a fight you can devour someone defensively. Like, are you going to sit on your carry and try to devour them to save them, and then just try to like W in place to try to peel for them? And if you're going to try to engage, then you can't use the ultimate defensively at all. So you're just trying to use it offensively, but your engage has this big delay on it. So like, why am I not just playing Malphite or something? So, I mean, maybe I just need more games on him, but I honestly just like wasn't seeing why I would ever want this champion unless he's just like super overstated and you just like tongue people to death.
So I haven't played him at all, but my experience has been contracts in our Discord playing solo queue games just while we're playing other stuff, and him just randomly bursting out laughing whenever he gets a W on like multiple people, the new Abyssal Voyage with the delay knockup thing, and he just starts cracking up. He won't say that it's good. He has not been like, oh yeah, you guys need to play it, but I haven't heard him laugh that much like just playing a random solo queue game in forever. So it's definitely funny looking.
It is funny looking, I'll give you that.
So I have a couple friends actually who play him. Thankfully, they play him top lane, which is his best role, I think, by far.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a sort of a Volbear experience where like, hey, people have to take a couple of days, couple of weeks to get good at the champion. So like, yeah, he's got a low win right now. Granted, like that's actually true. You shouldn't play him in solo queue if you put the games on him. But hey, he's got like a somewhat reliable, like reasonably long range CC ability on like a pretty short quota, like 15 seconds in the W. So it's like, well, if you do get lane control, and I feel like there's matchups you can win. I don't know what they are, but I'm sure there are matchups you can win. It's like, well, you have like a 1200 range knockup, which is like, well, I walk to the mid brush and then I just like follow up my Lissandra or Rise or whatever. And like, well, they're just probably dead because I knocked them up into auto Q auto, and that's just and that's Devour. So cool. Like he has like a very, I think, self-sufficient CC combo where like that person's dying. If he's on them, like that champ's dying. His ult is max health damage, so like you spit out the health stacking Lee Sin, and it's not like he's building much MR because it's Gore Drinker into shield, all the health AD items. So spit him out, and it's like, oh cool, it's 10% health Lee Sin. Let's just finish killing this guy.
I can't wait to be doing my Krugs and have a little bubbly under my feet Tahm Kench pop up and kill my
And he's bringing the jungler with him, by the way. So enjoy the Karthus or whatever hitting you afterwards. So yeah, maybe he's not going to be played, but there's something there. I wanted to quickly chime in that the other Stridebreaker user I want to see played is Jarvan. Jarvan is a great, very happy man to run new Stridebreaker. For context, his old W slow is 15%. Stridebreaker slow is 90%, decaying to 40. Like, this is a lot of CC. You can miss EQs like me and just practically root them by hitting the active. If they flash to not die, you just ult them afterwards. Like, you have all the lockdown you need because you EQ from 1200 range away. You're instantly in W range to like catch up for Stridebreaker. And then if you want to flash, I just dunk. And now you're just always gone. So I think he is very good ganking jungler who's ready to gank from level 2 onwards. He's always ready to go. The range is longer than Xin Zhao. The like skill shot like safety is safer than Xin Zhao. Like I think it actually works well.
It's interesting because he's never been like an attack speed champion to me,
but it's not terrible.
And if you so I love the item. I think the item right now is loaded with gold value. Also, if you're gonna miss your EQ, you better have somebody else there to do the damage because
you need that
damage. Whenever he's like, yeah, it doesn't matter, miss your EQ. I'm
ganking for a lane. I'm not just 1v1ing the Warwick.
Yeah. As all of our listeners are like, all right, I'm jumping into solo queue. I don't care. Miss my EQ. They're like auto attacking this guy. Like, why am I not winning the fight?
Yeah. I will say though, the other part of this though is you should go Conqueror because like it's just. Your E is attack speed, the Stridebreaker's attack speed, like you just bonk them for like 145 damage in auto attack. Like it's not bad. Like you will just hit them.
Yeah. The only way you ever go electrocute is if you're doing the super Chad lethality.
And we're not seeing that in pro play. We're seeing Stridebreaker into Sterix Gauge Conqueror and like he'll
Ray. That makes me think of Ray.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
some old school there.
The old lethality
for the old LCS viewers.
Of him one-shotting, I think it was Altec on Tristana.
Yeah, that was cool. The last thing I wanted to touch on was Anathema's Chains, I believe it's called. That's the new kind of very, very different style of item. So I'm going to be interested. I haven't really experimented with it much. I do think situationally it could be really strong. It's like, if you guys don't know what it is, basically you choose a nemesis or choose a target, and that person over time, it stacks up, it takes a minute, and then at max stacks, they do 30% less damage to you, and they also they have 20% less tenacity when they're near you. Yeah. So like my immediate thought is just, okay, heavy CC tank who can run at a 1 carry style comp, right? So like if you were going to play Juggernaut, right? This to me says, screw you, you can't play it, right? And that's kind of like where my mind immediately goes when you're playing that 1 carry style, where it's like, okay, well then I'm going to play Ornn, or I'm going to play Malphite or whatever, and I'm just going to run at you in every single fight, and it's going to be really hard for you to kill me. And by the time I die, my team's going to win the fight, right? And it's just such a different style because this like doesn't inherently make you more tanky against everyone, right? It's just like this one person, and also it doesn't reduce damage for your team. It's not like a Frozen Heart where I'm slowing down the Kog'Maw's attack speed. So you have to be in a situation where you can force this person to fight you, and if you can accomplish that, then it sounds incredibly valuable. But definitely I think it's risky to build unless it is clearly like one person must carry and I'm going to shut them down, because it takes a minute to stack up. If it's like a multi-threat team and you bind the Azir or whatever, and then like the Jinx is the one that's in the fight and popping off, you can't just like snap this over to the Jinx and have it be valuable. So it seems really interesting. I'm kind of curious to experiment with it, but I think in pro play it could shut out some draft styles almost completely.
Yeah. I think it also is softly in the Hullbreaker world. I know I haven't talked about the item too much yet, but it also is a somewhat tank 1v1 item where it's like, okay, I'm getting split pushed down by a Tryndamere or whatever. And it's like, well, good thing I'm taking 20% less damage from you. It's more efficient than anything else I can buy. Like once I'm post Randuin's, like, I'm item 3 and I have the lockdown for my jungler comes. So, it suits that as well. Again, hate drafting a comp. And also like it's reasonable in 1v1. It's efficient in that regard.
Yeah, there were two things that I thought of when I first saw it. One was versus teams like Hanwha Life, when you're just like, well, Chovy's your only good player.
Oh yeah.
let's just build an item that can shut down
Chovy's chains.
Chovy's chains.
Yeah. There's just 5 of them from the other team.
Everyone's like, what are you gonna do now? And the other thing I thought of, is if it's a game that comes down to 2 teams have split pushing options, and you want to try and play the split pushing siege war or whatever.
Yep.
I personally think that Hullbreaker is going to have more of an impact. I think it'll be more frequently bought and has more
kind of generic,
general uses. I already played against a Trundle top player that ended up building it. First of all, and it's going to sound a little bit bitter and solo queue whiny, but my top lane Mordekaiser died 1v1 to the top lane Trundle twice before any items were even built without jungle intervention. And so it was already going bad, but then there's this Trundle and he built Hullbreaker and nobody could stop him. Mordekaiser couldn't go up there.
He kills turrets even without that item.
It was actually so annoying. So I think the Hullbreaker style of hard split push, is going to be alive and well. Darshan, Zion Spartan, is doing well in Academy. So he's been looking to move up, just saying.
I want to get in there with some York games.
I know this is definitely an Azael item. You look up at the mini map, Azael is split pushing away.
Next week, I'll report back. I'm going to build this on everything and get some more games in.
Great.
All right, let's start at the very top of the LCS then, since we're postulating a lot of different changes here. It is agreed upon the meteoric
Thanks for
rise
coming over to my side, by the way,
of 100 Thieves. Okay, first of all, when you said that and I believe the first
lane
place
by lane
that you said it was lane by lane, I had already in that same lane by lane put forward that 100 Thieves will get a world spot. And so then it just felt like Phreak was like 1-0 me. It was like, they're the best team in the LCS. Yeah. And I was like, well, now mine doesn't even seem cool anymore. It's like just kind of lukewarm or whatever. Top 3 type of thing. And Phreak was like, they're going straight to the top.
They're going to the moon.
So yes, you can have the crown. You went more extreme with it. Again,
I am the hot take one. I just sometimes get burned. I play with fire.
Well, and you said it on LCS as well. So you were doubling down.
I'm like, no, I believe in this.
Go ahead then. You can start us off on the 100 Thieves then.
Sure.
Why exactly are they having so much success? Or what is your favorite part of it? Because to me, there are so many different things to be excited for this team about now.
My favorite part of it is absolutely the bottom lane. It is specifically Huhi's champion pool. I was like so sure, like Ziggs bot after the buffs like 2 weeks ago was like, he's going to be the best bot laner, but no team will play him because they just don't have the champ pool yet. It takes too long to learn to play mages. I get that. Huhi's an ex mid laner and Fasting Sen is a thing. It's a match made in heaven. So like that, I was like, so happy that they played farming Ziggs bot. So like that's immediately like the thing that stands out. But Huhi and FBI are outstanding. Abadaga is truly incredible. I will say very firmly, he is the best performing mid in the LCS. Historically, maybe that's not true, but he's playing the best in the LCS right now. He is outstanding. He's got a big champion pool. So they've got the best support champ pool wise, or at least he's up there. He's like top 2. Core is obviously amazing. They've got the best performing mid right now. FBI top 1 or top 2 in the bot lane. I'm not completely on the closer train. I think he's very good. He's doing well with his team, but like Close and FBI have shown weeks before. They're looking better now. They have a stronger mid laner. You could argue they looked worse because they had a worse mid laner in weeks past. But I mean, they are a reasonably well-rounded package. The top end of all these players is super high. They are very innovative. Reaper is deserving of mention here, where like some of these drafts are just like won by a sick, pick 10, whatever. So these year Kindred being a good example. So I just think like through every lens I can look at, they seem to be like among the best, if not the best team at X. If it's a top laner, some days probably top 3. Your closer, he's top 3. Your mid lane, number 1. Bot lane, number 1 or 2. Draft, number 1 or 2. Like champ pool, number 1 or 2. Which is like, oh, okay, well they have everything.
Yeah, I mean they just seem like the most complete team by far right now, and I think that's the biggest deal, right? Is that It's hard to really look at them and say, oh, well, this is the way that you beat them, or this is kind of the weakness, right? Whereas for TSM, for me, I think I'm looking at Lost as, well, you're solid, but you're not great, right? And when you're going up against some of the best bot lanes in the league, when you're looking at the other top 4, it feels like he's clearly a step below the marksman on all those other teams, right? And that is something that you can attack. Doesn't mean they can't overcome it, but right now, 100 Thieves just look like by far the best team to me. I think the biggest thing we touched on a little bit earlier with a kind of Abadaga point in the Honda MVP question, just their flexibility, right? They can play all these different styles. They look comfortable in all these different styles, would make them incredibly difficult to prepare for in a best of 5. And they can really punish you on red side as well because they're willing to go for counter picks and some of these kind of game-changing drafts. So they're just looking so strong right now. I'm going to be really excited to see when they do actually match up against TSM next and see how that does look. But even though they're both up near the top of the table, I'm just kind of favoring 100 Thieves more and more.
Because probably to your point about it feeling like a more complete map for 100 Thieves and a lot of it being on the bottom side, because I think that Huni's playing really well right now for TSM.
Absolutely. And Spica's amazing.
Spica's playing really well right now for TSM. I think PoE is kind of a given.
PoE is PoE.
Really
you can count on PoE in the mid lane. So that is kind of the one factor that I feel like is also building up towards the clash at kind of the new top of the LCS between 100 Thieves and TSM and what we're going to be looking for. The flexibility thing to me, it's like 100 Thieves already showed us their proof of concept and has already passed all the tests as far as like, now we have full trust in them. If they pick some weird stuff in Champ Select, you're not going to be so skeptical.
I believe, yeah.
Exactly. You're not like, oh my God, are they panicking? Like they really need to pull something crazy out to be able to defeat these opponents? All right. No. All right. They've practiced something this week. This is going to be fun. This is going to be good type of thing because you have confidence in, flexibility, Abadaga and mid lane, obviously playing so many different things. We talked about the bottom lane so much. So I think that's where this feeling comes from, even though these two teams are tied at the top of the standings and the carryover from spring kind of also lending into it.
Yeah, super happy with those teams. We're moving on to the next one on the docket. From 3-0 to 0-3, CLG. Actually, this is another one I'm passionate about. So I'll let you guys go first for the other ones, but CLG I want to jump in on. So I've seen all kinds of nuclear hot takes on the internet, and I want to temper those. I've got my own, but no, these ones need to go down. So okay, CLG 3-0 last week, sick, good job, well done, like incredible. You found your bongo comp, is what to call it. They're really aggressive. And then this weekend, 0-3, and it's like, well, okay, turns out the comp is trash. They're easy to figure out. The team's garbage. And it's like, no. Here's the thing. CLG came in as the 9th place team in the league. In any given week, CLG probably should 0-3. So you can't be like, oh, CLG lost? It's like, yeah, it's CLG. They're not that good. I'm sorry, but that's just the way this goes. Like, of course they're going 0-3. But the teams they lost to are like actually pretty good teams. Like, I'm trying to look it up again right here, but like, it was like TL, TSM and stuff. Yeah, it was Immortals, who to me are the number 3 team in the league. I'm going to say that, by the way. We'll move on. TL, number 4 team in the league, and Cloud9, the number 5 team in the league. Like, yeah, they lost to a bunch of high-level playoff teams and Cloud9 defending champions. Like, CLG always goes 0-3 this week, unless they really, really overperform. And, well, they played some close games instead of just getting smashed. It's like, this comp is good. They can figure it out. Unfortunately, like, this team is just not that good right now. They had some holes plugged in the ship because they're playing the bongo comp, and I think it is still a good comp, and they got to figure out the rest of it. But, like, I kind of think you look at the results and go, oh, clearly the draft is bad. Like, that's just the most Keck W.
I mean, CLG, the brand for the last few years, I mean, actually, the brand basically since the beginning has been the brand of a pendulum. As soon as you get too weak, they start to overshoot, and so that's why you have these reactions to the 0-3 and then 3-0. All of a sudden, everybody's jumping up right back on again to be reinvigorated. I just think that it was cool that they did push outside of what was more standard and what was more meta and found something. They latched onto it. Yes, all the other teams, given extra week of prep, came in specifically ready for it and crafting their own counters and things. That just means that you have to remain nimble, keep on looking for more changes that you can make. Guess what? 11 Point 13 has a lot of new things, new shiny toys to work with. So go wild, get some Hullbreakers, split pushing going or something there for CLG. And really test those limits. And I think it's important to have a team in our league that is going to do that, not only for themselves, but also for the benefit of the other teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are a weak team, it's just better to focus on a more simplistic play style, right? And I've always felt like this, and bongo comp, whatever you want to call it, is
that's going to be said a lot.
Yeah,
bongo is a hot
now.
word right now.
Yeah, this is the first time I've said it, and I already feel like it's been said too much.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's just kind of like the more extreme version of what I was always recommending to teams in the past. If you're a bad team, draft 2 forms of engage, play 5v5, show up to the dragon, see what you can get done. Keep it simple, right? And this is just the next evolution of that. They're just going even more hardcore. It's like 4 or 5 ways to engage. And I think that's fine, right? I actually do like seeing a team play a defined play style. This week it didn't work, but to your point, Phreak, they're not a very good team. Like, and so they're not going to win all their games just because they came up with a play style. Doesn't mean they're now going to, run the table and go straight to Worlds and win the championship. Like, no, of course not. So they have other problems. And I think it was Sven did a post-game interview that kind of addressed it fairly well, where it's just the idea that, this comp can work, like these kind of styles can work, but it's not actually with the very strongest champions in the meta right now. So he's saying it works. It papers over some of the weaknesses that a team could have, but you're also handicapping yourself somewhat by picking just like weaker champions
objectively
to
weak
make
champions.
it. Exactly. So of course you're not just going to by default win every time. If you can catch teams off guard, you have an advantage in one regard. But guess what? You're also weaker on the other side. There's a reason that every team isn't just picking Vi every week, right? The clear is slower. Sometimes Broxa makes these ganks happen, and he's down 30 CS. Right? So you're barely even up off of that. So there's trade-offs here, and that's what people kind of have to keep in mind. And CLG, I think, is willing to make those trade-offs because they aren't winning in the other style. So they want to give themselves clear win conditions, and I respect that.
Yeah, I mean, this comp is 50% win rate. That is far better than CLG's win rate doing everything else.
Yep.
So, like, even after the 0-3, like, I would still run that back. And yeah, again, to your point, like, I want to see Finn grab a Hullbreaker on his Kled and get help. So that like he can get ahead and just like do that, and then when he chooses a group, sure, whatever. That's the kind of stuff I'm looking for. Yeah,
it'll be interesting. I want to circle back to TSM a little bit because I feel like we kind of skipped past them after 100 Thieves. For me, the thing that has been really impressive is the top side. I think in particular, Spica and Huni have really been so good. That is what I've been enjoying most about TSM. I mean, PoE has been good. PoE has been PoE, but he still kind of has the same question marks around him where it's like, okay, well, you're not necessarily playing the most meta styles. Maybe some of that's going to change if some of these champions are getting pushed out, like Lee Sin getting nerfs, and some of these champions that he's not really playing are getting nerfed, then maybe he's not being kind of, I don't know, a reason you're not playing that anymore. But Huni has had one of the best splits he's had in a really long time, right? Like he's had, I feel like, windows over the last couple of years where he's had these really good times, but it doesn't really feel like it lasts often. And it's been pretty much the whole split of Huni being really damn good.
Yeah.
He's having to draw bans, like his rumble is insane. He has his kind of unique play style. I feel like he's struck a fairly good balance of being able to play aggressive and have a little bit of the Huni flair without just like running it down in the side lane 3 times a game. And so I'm pretty impressed by how he's just been playing overall, and him and Spica as a pairing have just been so strong and so consistent that it feels like you can rely on them to just always be winning top side of the map. And I'd even put them forth as, you talk about 100 Thieves, like really good in all these roles. I would say you could make the argument that Spica and Huni are actually #1 in their role right now.
Yeah,
right?
There's a real argument there.
And I think that is kind of the new strength for TSM, because I feel like TSM has always been a team that has been more about mid lane or playing through bot, right? And I can't really remember the last time that it was like full commit to more of the top side, and it feels kind of cool to see them having a bit of a different play style than they've had historically.
It was a bit with Broken Blade, like they sort of tried.
True, absolutely.
Clearly, I mean, there's obviously like the 7 years of Dyrus where it's like, oh yeah, no, they never played through topside. He was on the island, and he was on Dyrus duty. But
and when Doublelift was there, it was always about bot.
Of course, right? So it's like even that overlap with Broken Blade, and like once in a while he played Vladimir and did well. Like his finals, I think was really good on Broken Blade, for example. But it's the exception, right? It's notable because it happened actually at some point, as opposed to like this was the year for TSM. So yeah, to your PvP point real quick. Like he's played 2 Lucian games with a loss and 1 Viego. Everything else is literally a ranged magic damage mage.
Yep.
Like this is cool. He's like, nah, I'm just doing this, whatever. And hey, they're the second best team in the league, so like clearly it's working. And I'm curious if like this is really the read that like actually TSM is right. I'm not really like putting this
I don't
forward.
think so because it's everyone else in the world
I
versus
know,
PoE, right?
I know, but I will always think to like 2017 where no one did Ardent Sensor until the end of like the year, and I'm like, but what if? Also, the next patch has 200 gold off of the magic damage made or the mana mage mythics, which is like going to directly buff exactly PoE's champ pool. Which like okay, they're ready for the new meta if it takes over a little bit.
I was actually going to bring up for TSM the flexibility point, because you were talking a lot about it for 100 Thieves and then for CLG as well, you know, reaching outside the meta, because Huni actually has not required being played around a lot on top. They have had some good combinations up there, but I think he's been a very good play for bottom lane style as well with the Mundo pick. So yeah, there's the little hiccup of nobody on the team knew that Mundo passive only blocks immobilizes.
Not Whimsy, yeah.
And Lulu polymorph is not an immobilize.
Yep.
And so it turned
long
into an
pause for that
actual
one.
pause for a bug. But aside from that, I think if we're giving so much credit to Reaper and 100 Thieves and all their players for being so flexible and pulling out the different champions and new stuff, this is a reworked champion. And they're the first ones to pull out new Mundo. Yeah. And Huni played it extremely well. So
It worked great. But don't you also think that was like one part that, and I thought TL had one of the worst drafts of the year.
Yes, also that. I agree with that.
But I was happy to see it come out. I don't know that it was like really particularly amazing against this, unless they just did this like poke, no damage, double enchanter thing. But to be fair to him, he played it great, and the Warmogs was super smart, and he was absolutely critical in them winning. So I'm not trying to detract too much, but God, I just thinking of that draft, I was like, wow, this draft was horrible.
I see, and that's why I think it was really admirable for TSM, you know, to lean into it.
Yeah.
With what's happening in the moment.
It's
So
not a knock on him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so and it's a different look from like the Nocturne top, which is you know being spammed a lot, right? And just diving in there. So I think they deserve credit for that. And being tied still up at the top, how much do you think you guys would have to see? It would probably have to be, you know, some big game from Lost or something to make you more
believe they could be
check yourself as far as just giving your vote for 100 Thieves. Because I feel like that's the one wiggly piece for me. You know, there's this Jenga tower that leads up to the top of LCS, and TSM is pretty sturdy, but I feel like there's a wiggly Jenga piece here, and it's Lost.
I think it has to be more than one, right? Like you could go 20-0 next week in one game. It's not going to change my opinion unless he starts
20-0. It's not going to change your opinion.
He's against the toss on Friday. Everyone's going to go 20-0 in that game.
In one random game, I actually don't care. I mean, it's like that. Sure, that's an impressive game. I don't think he's been bad. He just like their laning isn't very good. They usually lose lane, and he's been, you know, a middle of the pack AD in the LCS.
Yeah, he's just an LCS level player.
Yeah, he's an LCS level player.
Cool. And those players can do well.
But he's also paired with your $6 million support, and he still only looks like an LCS player, right? You know, that was, I can guarantee you, that was not what TSM was envisioning when they were getting Sword Art, this world finalist support. They're thinking, yeah, we're going to be like the 7th best laning duo in the league.
Well, I'm pretty sure they were envisioning double lift down there with him.
Absolutely. So
you got lost.
And that's kind of my point, right? Is that it's like they can't be that happy with how this is going. I think you can absolutely win the league with like a serviceable bot lane. You don't have to be strong everywhere. And I don't think that they are that strong in the bot lane. But if you go up against a team that actually is strong everywhere, well, then you're going to be at a disadvantage because you have to be able to draft around that, or you have to be so much better elsewhere that it compensates for it, right? So then it puts additional pressure on Huni and PoE and Spica to just be slamming their opponents so that it doesn't matter that the loss is down.
Yep. Which, of course, they can do. I would not be shocked if TSM won if TSM beat 100 Thieves in a week or so when they play. But yeah, I favor 100 Thieves, and I say TSM at second because that's where their strong points are. So next up on the docket, talk about Immortals. They currently have the 3rd best record of the summer split. They are climbing and climbing and climbing in the standings. I know I said a few minutes ago I called them the number 3 team in the league. We're going to wait on that one. Who wants to go first?
We're gonna wait on just saying they're the number 3 team in the league.
I kept leading every point. I didn't want to keep doing it.
So
but...
I mean, I don't agree.
Of course you
first
don't.
off, and I mean, maybe there's more of an argument of like this minute they're the number 3.
Yes.
But I do
yeah.
not believe that they are going to be in the semifinals in playoffs.
Okay.
Right. To me, that is kind of like what you are saying.
I'm not even buying this minute.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Okay.
I'm not either. To be honest,
That's fine. Go ahead. Sorry.
I think that Xerxes though has been playing really well. That's one thing that I'm happy to see, because he was like a solid player, right, in EU, and he came over and it just like didn't work. And I know he talked about kind of like the mental aspect of his game and how that has gotten better and he's feeling more comfortable. And I love seeing the actual atmosphere with Immortals. They seem really kind of jovial and they seem to really get along. It was funny. I can't even remember. I think it was EG was playing when I was casting yesterday, and Gilotto, their coach, and Revenge, and some of them were just like sitting in the stands and kind of like jokingly cheering them on and like, you know, yelling at the players and stuff. And they came over and talked to us and just like, they just seem to really get along and enjoy playing with each other. I tweeted about it, but like when Immortals player is getting interviewed, all the Immortal, like generally every team, the one player just gets left behind and they just like go get ready to leave. Yeah. And Immortals all goes and sits in the stands and like cheers on and claps for their player and stuff as they're getting interviewed. Yeah. I just fucking love that.
It's
like,
so good.
Because it really does like make a big difference, right? People kind of used to joke about CLG as the friendship team or Cloud9 at times as like the friendship team. And I think it makes a huge difference when you enjoy spending your time with these players. It's easier to put in additional hours. It's easier to take and give feedback. It's easier to kind of like grind at it. And I think it's made them a lot better. I don't think it's made them a top 3 or even a top 4 team, but I do think it's made them a top 6 team, you know, maybe a top 5 team. And they were solidly like 8th, 9th kind of area on most people's power rankings. So that is a huge improvement. And I think they should be really happy with the growth they've made.
Well, yeah, Andres talked specifically about that and about the culture of having everybody there for the interviews and cheering them on. And I think it's the direction that they're taking the team and the org is a really positive one. So happy to see the success and the rise to ascent. Let's go, Phreak.
Yeah,
you can be unleashed now.
Sure. So I will take the point that Azael said, which is they are the best this minute. And that's where I will kind of go very.
Minute you're saying.
Yeah. So they're the third best this minute, and is what I believe. I think if they played a best of 5 against Cloud9, they would win the best of 5 against Cloud9 if that series was tomorrow. Now maybe Perks levels up in playoffs, right? Maybe Sven levels up in playoffs. Maybe they figure this stuff out, and then there you go, right? Maybe Alfari finds his footing and he's back. Maybe Santorin, right, starts feeling better and he's back. Those are relevant factors. But the way TL and Cloud9 are playing, and this is more of like a TL and Cloud9 are not very good point, but like Immortals have really stepped up. They are doing really well, and I would take them against both those teams today.
I am so glad that you said that, because guess what is coming up on our schedule, baby? Immortals versus Cloud9 on Friday, the next day of LCS. I feel like we should throw down a bet on this one. I'll bet on Cloud9. You bet on Immortals.
I'm happy to.
We just like show up on the day with like face paint of the other team or something.
That sounds great. Yes, I will have the Immortals tattoo. Get your Cloud9 one.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Immortals did win last time they played. So there's that. So they're one game up in the best of 3.
They are in the best. Yep. He did say best of 5.
So they have to 3-0 in the regular season then, because there's only 3 games.
They'll throw the regular season and in playoffs. I'm not going to take that bet. That's like really troll, but I mean, I take them as
we'll just bet on this next upcoming one because it's easily resolved before we forget.
Okay. I like it.
True.
So I feel like we're then going from like the really happy team to maybe a bit of a sad team here as FlyQuest. It kind of blew up the roster. They're obviously mixing some things up. They talked a bit about it on socials. Blickrush kind of was saying, hey, like things aren't really working on stage, so we're going to try some different pieces, see if we can evaluate. It felt weird to me because there was literally no announcement until like LCS was starting that day, which just seemed kind of strange. And I don't know if they were just hadn't talked to their players yet. and they were kind of like waiting to tell the public or what was going on.
I'll chime in with a possibility, a very boring possibility, which is like FlyQuest may still not have hired like a PR person. Like I have a friend who like interviewed to go be like PR for them and like didn't take the job, but like I know at least at the beginning of the split, like they were looking. So it could just be like, well, they just don't have enough people to like get that stuff ready.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's actually true, but like that is one boring possibility.
That is a boring possibility.
This is one that I feel like is a little bit trying to jump on the train of all the happy, oh yeah, these are super, positive changes. FlyQuest are on a 7-game loss streak, okay?
Yeah.
This to me, and especially since it's 3 at once, is a panic button ejection.
The button is
panic
not big
bucket.
enough.
So
They gotta get the water out of the boat.
So your panic bucket. I'm not sure if a panic bucket is supposed to get filled or is supposed to get empty.
You're supposed to,
but
you're
it's
supposed to fill it with, to empty the boat.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really good metaphor.
We'll go with
Good
that
job.
one for panic bucket. But that to me is the feel on this one. And yes, I do think that even if that is the case, you should lean into and go with the more positive outward look and communication and all of that. But this team for so long has really struggled to find their identity as a team for how they want to play the game. And then the coordination in even just getting past mid game. They have had some early leads. They've actually had some games where they're setting up and you're like, oh, really hoping for them because they're the underdogs. Can they get some upset? Can they get something working for themselves here? And yet it falls apart very quickly in objective setup, in things, even just keeping vision up. So I think this one was they're definitely in scramble mode, rightly so. They're racking up so many losses in a row.
I mean, they just lost the Golden Guardians, right? You did this swap against the easiest possible team to do it against in the league. You had a lead and then you lost, right? And they have looked so depressing in their games. It's not even just that they're losing, it's that they have looked hopeless. It doesn't even seem like there's any like clear area.
I will say at least in the Golden
on.
Guardians one, it looked more hopeful than the previous one.
It did. Yeah, I mean,
So-
they were at the advantage, but it's also against the worst team in the league that has 6 wins, right? Or had 6 wins.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to not start looking at them and be like, geez, like, have you really fallen so far that you're the worst team in the league now? Like, are they actually like the current worst team in the league? And I'm starting to feel like they are, because Golden Guardians at least has some hope in their games. I feel like they've improved in their early game a bit. A lot of their games, it's like, it's going pretty well. Okay, you fell apart in the mid game, but like they were a bit more competitive a lot of the time. Is kind of my feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, right? Like, to your point, yeah, I would put FlyQuest as the 10th team in the league right now. To do the silver linings, I thought Tomo looked very good. I thought Kumo looked very good, like even just KDA-wise. Yeah, in the back of my head, it's like, okay, but it's against Golden Guardians. But like, Golden Guardians like are nearly 6-6, like this split. Like they shouldn't have lost to Cloud9. It did. I think there's another game in there where it's like you clearly could have closed the game out and done it. And it's like, okay, in a world where Golden Guardians is slightly cleaner, they're like the 6th team, 7th team in the league. And it's like, okay, you were really close with number 6 or 7. And considering you ended Spring Split in 8th, you're competitive with 6 or 7. I'm stretching, to be clear, but like, okay, and it's the first game for these guys. Like, literal rookie in Tomo down there, right? And it's like, okay, I'd be willing to give them more time because there were some good pieces. That game looked better than most other FlyQuest games. So, yeah, they did, in fact, lose that one, that best of one. Do I think they're going to keep going 25% win rate with this roster? Do I think this roster is going to have a 7-loss streak like the previous one did? I don't think so. So I think it'll look a little bit better. I think they'll get their couple of wins. Unfortunately, I still put them as like 8th, 9th, even with that going on. So, we'll see what that actually turns into, but I'm a little hopeful. Not as a top team, but looking better.
I think one of the biggest struggles when you do find yourself at the bottom like this is the team morale. And as much as we're complimenting Immortals for it and for creating that atmosphere, that took work because that was also a team that was in a similar position. So I think the biggest thing for me for FlyQuest right now is to stabilize the personalities of the players on the team to try and get them in a positive, angle at least for them. And maybe the substitution thing is going to be a step in that direction. But that for me is always what I look at most with the bottom teams is it is just so depressing. You're a competitive person losing over and over and having everyone just constantly tell you this, it just all piles on. So you have to just look at the next weekend as a new opportunity to try and change the story.
Yeah, it's tough, especially for the players that people were kind of looking at. I mean, people always were like, okay, well, Jose Dioto and Licorice, you're going to be the guys, right?
Yeah.
Licorice went from you know, when I'm casting them in the studio, you look over, you see the pictures of the championship teams. He's there with Cloud9 from last year, right? Yep. Jose Dioto, you know, went internationally. Guess what that means? He was winning in his region, right? Like, so it's definitely tough, I think, mentally, and it does feel like it's taken a toll. It's been kind of sad to watch Licorice because he just hasn't looked good, and it's been tough because this is a guy who was the best top laner in the league for a lot of years, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was playing at such a high level, and I don't know if it's a mental thing or they just can't seem to like set him up for success or a combination of things or what.
Yeah.
But that is one of the things that feels kind of sad to see someone who is really at the top levels now kind of struggle.
Yeah. The last silver lining I'll give, Palafox is good. And again, the you know, top and bot came in. Like Diamond is fine. Like we saw him all of last split, and he's like he's an okay player. But like Palafox, Tomo, and Kumo are like, if this team turns around, it's those three.
Mm-hmm.
All right, give me some silver linings for Cloud9 then, because while my angle for FlyQuest is trying to create the positive atmosphere, Cloud9 are coming from the top on this descent down from Mount Olympus, down from winning spring, down from MSI.
Yep.
And they too need some silver linings right now because the wheels have been falling off.
Well, I mean, the silver lining is they went 2-1 this weekend, right? They only lost 100 Thieves, who basically everyone will tell you is the best team in the league right now. The negative side of that is, well, it's like you beat Golden Guardians and CLG and you didn't really even look that dominant doing it, you know, like two of our worst teams in the league. So that's the negative side. But I mean, the positive side is, hey, you did win. You have time to kind of rebuild here. I'd also say when I'm looking for positives, I still think that Fudge and Vulcan have been very good. Those guys, I think, have individually been playing really well. I think the problems have been kind of complicated. Obviously, everyone was pointing to King. He was fine. But Blabber and Perks haven't really been consistently good since pre-MSI, since spring, right? It's been a while now.
Yep.
If you're looking at all of MSI plus 4 full weeks of summer, they haven't been that good, right? And that is kind of the concern, is that like, will you be able to fix these problems and kind of really get it together? Because I'm sure that, especially for the players who were there last year, that kind of like summer collapse from last year is in the back of your mind, and you want to say it's not going to happen again. It's never going to happen again. But that's got to be kind of sitting there in the back of your mind, like, oh God, like,
it's sitting there in the front of their mind. Did you see Vulcan tweeting about it? He's like, I'm tired of hearing about this stupid ass summer fall of Cloud9. Azael.
Well, you were part of it last year, so figure it out, bud. It's like, that's too bad, but this is the case you're in. And their week next week is stacked. They are going against my 2nd, 3rd, 4th power rank. They've got Immortals on Friday. They've got TL on Saturday, and they got TSM on Sunday. This is a week they could legit 0-3. Like, I mean, everyone looking at it knows that's a possibility. I mean, literally for any team, it's a possibility, sure. But like, this could really well and truly be a 0-3 week. And it's like, yo, is the sky falling yet, Cloud9?
So to me, everybody keeps on looking. It feels like multiple weeks. People are like, oh, what should we talk about this week? How about, is the sky falling for Cloud9?
Okay,
type of thing.
valid.
Like, it's just this reoccurring thing that is going to keep coming up because of the
they're
position.
Probably the most popular team, and they won spring, and now they're not that good.
The position of the team, the position of the org, yeah, it's going to constantly revolve around this.
They could also 3-0. To be clear, they could also just easily 3-0.
And
like, they're about the same skill level.
And if they do that, then everyone's like, Cloud9's back, baby.
They're
Let's
back.
go.
King was the problem.
And I think the most interesting thing is that a lot of this controversy surrounds the two basically star players for the team of the $5 million buyout Perks and Blabber, the North American superstar multi MVP jungler for them. And that's where all this turmoil comes from, is the variation in some of the players that you know and have seen have the highest peaks of play for the team and have dominated so much. So this is why it keeps swirling around. You keep having these very extreme questions being posed in both directions, and why everyone's going to look so much forward to this next week when you always want to see it come up against the melting point here of super high competition, because that's when you get these rebuttals. And you know, 1 week, yeah, they could be complaining about people, bringing up the summer collapse, superstitious type of stuff. Then next week, you slap a bunch of top teams, and you get to go exactly the other way with it and run the story that way.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll see which way it goes. I think if they get away with 2 wins, they'll be really happy. All right. We got anchor question here. This one comes from Isaac Chan.
If you watched a randomly generated weekend of LCS with player and team names hidden, do you think you'd be able to accurately identify all 15 matchups?
All 15 matchups? No, I don't. I don't think I could do all 15. I think that I could identify a number of the teams. I think that I could identify a number of the players and kind of use that as a jumping off point. I think it's easier for me. Like if I was watching ProView, I would have an easier time doing this.
FBI is an instant. Every right click is bound to Z.
Z. So
it's not bound, by the way. Wait.
I think his right click actually does it. Oh, really? He does do it?
No, yeah, he does it.
Oh, okay.
Because he talked about it.
Oh, okay.
So that I definitely could not do all 15, right? There's some that would be obvious, like CLG doing their style of comps would be, I think, fairly obvious. I think there's certain champions that kind of give away certain teams that you could be looking towards, right? It's like, oh, there's a Rumble top. Well, it's probably TSM, right?
Yep.
That's probably Huni. Okay, like there's some really crazy stuff in the bot lane, like the Lee Sin Senna. Well, that's probably Thieves, right? There's going to be things like that. Beyond that, if it was just a generic broadcast thing that isn't like really honing in on the laning, I think it would be really hard.
There's no freaking way you can identify all 15. I'm surprised it's not a stronger reaction.
Well, I did think that, but I'm just talking about how could I identify many.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
Okay, I think I would give myself almost equal odds that I could get the entire weekend right. And the reason why is because each team plays 3 times, right? As soon as you identify this team is TSM, like, are you able to track them, right? Like, if you're like, this team is TSM, and it autofills all 3, right? Like, if that's the case, if I can find one TSM,
no, you have to identify each matchup. Okay, all 15.
Then I take it back. I think I could identify. Okay, then I will change my phrasing. I can identify each team at least once with, I would say, most weekends.
Yeah,
I could identify each team at least once. I probably couldn't do all 15 matchups. But I could identify each team at least once. I think I could do that.
There's certain players that I would be immediately drawn to, like how Jensen moves in mid lane is how I would look to identify TL, because he does these little micro side to side movements like really, really frequently. And that's one of the reasons I think he's really good at actually like sidestepping steal shots and dodging out. And so because I did Lane Kingdom and stuff in the past, I watched a lot of pro views of certain players, and there's definitely little things that you can identify with certain players. So, like that's how I would look about doing it. But if I'm just kind of casually watching and the nameplates are all disabled, I think it's really hard. Because there's a lot of the same picks that are getting used all the time. You can just be like, oh, well, there's a Viego. Of course, that's so-and-so. Well, everyone plays Viego and Lee Sin and Rumble and all these champions. So you have to really then be seeing how they're piloting it or kind of looking like that.
Did a lot of research. You can get some extra things. Like, for example, Gwen is not like unanimously picked ban. She's like the number 12 champ in pro play, like worldwide for top regions. And it's like, yeah, some teams leave Gwen up, some teams ban her. Okay, cool. I can like cut that down to half, just like for one thing in the ban phase. You know, figure out like, oh, which melenas do and don't play Viego. Like, do people have different builds going on? Like Imperial Man at Gragas is like, oh, it's Xerxes. If the Rumble jungle is actually good, oh, it's Xerxes. If we see Sejuani, we know it's Armeo. So like there are some things, but yeah, getting all 15 would be tough for sure.
Insanely tough. I give you guys really small odds on all
I give myself
15.
0% chance on getting 15.
I could get each team once decent chance. That's it though.
Let's move on to the Twitter questions then, because we got one from Moritz. Hi guys, what is your opinion on adapting to the best of 2 format from Academy for LCS as well? Personally, I only see benefits: more staged games, longer watch times, interesting matchups, reduced impact of randomness and cheese/level 1, all while maintaining a reliable schedule.
I mean, there's a lot of reasons that it's not adapted to, right? It's not all benefits. People have literally done this in Europe. Fans generally, as much as a meme as the Thai thing is, people were generally unsatisfied with things that ended 1-1. It just didn't feel like a satisfying conclusion. I think that one of the major benefits is because side advantage is a real thing, and this time you play both sides every way. So that's my favorite thing about BO2. I also think we're doing triple round robin. If you want to change everything to 2 games, then the days are impossibly long. So, right. So then to maintain the same amount of broadcast hours on each individual day, we would then have to be broadcasting 6 days a week, which is just untenable. Right. So it does require other changes. It's like we run 15 matchups a week right now. Right. You can't do 10 game days every day. It's just too long. People won't watch. And if you do 6 days a week, I just think it's like not really possible for the broadcast crew. I also don't think that people will watch 6 days a week. And, so there is some sort of fatigue there. You could reduce to like double round robin and then do, 4 days a week or something. But even that becomes a lot. I know people are kind of negative on best of one. I've always been personally somewhat of a fan of it. I think that it does make playoffs feel a lot more special. But I realize that as far as like if you want purely the most competitive format, the best competitive integrity, the more games is always going to be better. But you have to draw a line somewhere, right?
The line I'll draw on competitive integrity as well is like, look, it doesn't really matter if you're 12-8 or 13-7 in the regular season. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is like pretty close. Like, is anyone going to be mad that like, oh, CLG and Flacos are 1 game apart making playoffs? It's like, okay, both the teams losing first round anyway. Like, who cares? Like, you're going to get the right teams in general. And, I would say, hey, if regular season just crowned the champion, yeah, this would be a really weird format. But it's like, at the end of the day, like, the scene is going to be pretty good. Like, you are going to serve your competitive goals of a regular season. Like, that's really the point, is you're going to serve proper competitive goals with even double round robin. I'm glad we're doing triple. I'm glad we're doing, like, 5 games, for every team plays every team throughout the year. And you're going to have the right teams in playoffs. You've done it, and it's even double elims. Like, you're going to get the right teams going to the top 3 spots as well. Because at that point, okay, now you are playing the very serious BO5s. Yeah, now we're playing 1 matchup a day, but it's playoffs. It's different. You can play a much more slow schedule where there's only 1 match in the day because you're going to watch it because it's an important match because someone's getting eliminated or whatever. So like this to me works very well. You're getting reps. People are playing. Every team plays every day, which is actually I think really valuable. Like I'm much less likely to like tune into the LCK at 1 a.m. if it's 2 teams I don't care about. But it's a lot easier to, do that if it's, IG playing in the LPL or it's T1 playing in the LCK or Damonkey or whatever. It's like, yeah, that's easier to do.
Yeah. For me, we've made so many changes over the years and tried a lot of the different things. I just remember so clearly that when we did the best of 3s and did double streams.
Double stream was horrible.
It just was a crater in viewership because as much as, it's cool for your interesting matchup to be able to get your best of 3 of the teams that you really care about. It really put a dent as far as, people following and then if you're just doing the best of 2, then you have the added thing of people want some finality. You want some end. Who is the real winner today, Azael? Who do I flame?
Me.
If they both win 1,
me.
who do I flame? If you're Phreak, it's everybody. You flame them both.
No, you flame me, and then it's fine. You should get to vent,
If anything, like if we were going to swap away from it, I want it to be best of 3. And then I would say you have to almost do like single round robin, best of 3. But like people aren't going to be really that happy about that. Yeah. But it's tough. It's tough to check all the boxes. Like the good teams play every day, so you always have interesting matchups. That you aren't broadcasting so many hours that you're able to like have a reasonable schedule, et cetera, and have competitive integrity. I think right now, honestly, triple round robin is pretty damn good for that. I just think with top 8 teams making playoffs, triple round robin, spring carrying over to summer, there's no shot that you miss playoffs if you even remotely deserve to get there.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
So to me, like we have a pretty good system right now. I personally do enjoy it. All right, we got another question here. This one comes from Valí Plays Games. Sometimes I don't feel like I get to enjoy the big game-changing moments with big team fights because I'm catching up with your analysis after to understand it. Any tips or tricks you guys have to help fans live in the moment of big team fights while they're happening and see what you guys see?
I mean, for me, like since I do play commentary, like playing the game and just like feeling immersed in it helps. So and it's like to me, it's kind of like speaking a language. It's like, yeah, I mean, I would have a hard time keeping up with German commentary or reading German. Like I can translate the words and get there eventually, but like my German's pretty bad. And so yeah, it's like, well, do you play the game a lot? Like, are you watching a lot? Whatever. Like, because you'll start to understand the champions. Like, you'll get used to like what a champion does as well. It's like, oh yeah, I know what I'm looking for with Akali. And Akali's a tough one because her dashes look very similar. Like that's actually not the best example, but like I know what Gwen's spells look like. Like they're really obvious actually. So I know like, oh, okay, now her shroud is down. Now like I know that like she's going to be much more attackable, or while it's up, I know that like I'm looking to see if Callista goes into melee range to deal damage, or if she just like does something else for the rest of that duration. And so just like having the intuitive understanding of 600 abilities, yeah, that's tough. Like it is. It's a complex game, but like that's the kind of stuff that
Freak
like,
advice: play the game for 12 years, like me.
Good.
yeah, play the game for 12 years like me. Maybe try voicing champion spotlights. I don't know. It helps.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think if you want like maybe a cheap cheat to try and get in quickly, is keep your eyes on. Usually, more of the commentary will be about whoever's fed or whoever has really high damage potential for one team. So looking at that person, generally the other team is also looking at that person and trying to find ways to kill that person. So there are big ultimates, that are some of the big, team fight changing moments.
I will add one thing, because we are in a very melee heavy metagame. It is harder to track fights this split than in other ones, where like Set and Nocturne and Lee Sin and Galio are all literally on top of each other. It is harder. Like it is notably harder, I've noticed, for me to cast fights. It is harder to follow them in general, because like they're on top of each other and there's big shields, and like it is tougher. Like objectively, like that is true. So like if you're noticing this split, this is not as much your fault, or your fault really anyway. But I would say, yeah, like look at who's starting the fight, like, right, because nothing's going on, and then I see Solar Flare. Okay, who did Leona target?
Key
Okay,
abilities.
I now care about this Jhin, because this Jhin is who got Solar Flare. Does the Jhin die? Does the Jhin get out? Okay, I'm watching the Jhin. Okay, the Jhin got out. Okay, now who's the Jhin hitting? Right, and you can just kind of like go from point to point and just keep tracking and let that kind of paint by numbers.
I mean, to me, when you talk about the game changing moments and just being able to enjoy those, I think of like my advice is simply identify the game changing abilities, right? Like what is the X factor? When you're talking about these most hype moments and not just like every fight in general, it's like, okay, there's an Orianna Malphite in this game. Well, that is where there's going to be the comeback if it's going to happen. It's going to be this Malphite ult into a big shockwave, right? So often it's looking at, you talk about Solar Flare, it's looking at the Rakan or the Leona, the Hard Engage, these champions that are going to go in and start the fight and make that play. So it's kind of identifying key spells, or like what Kobe was talking about, the key champions, the ones that the action is going to be happening around if they're really, really strong. So hopefully that will help you. And I think the more you play, the more you watch, you get used to it over time. It gets a lot.
The more you know, Rainbow.
It's really overwhelming when you first start, for sure. All right, that'll wrap it up for us for now. Thank you, Honda, for making this episode possible. Thank you, Phreak, for making this episode possible. It would have just been Kobe and I sitting here.
Thank you, Mark, for letting us know.
Thank you, Mark, for telling no one that you weren't going to be here. We appreciate you. And remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode of The Dive, youtube.com/LCS. You can also check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Anchor.fm. You can send us your takes on Anchor, not just questions. We might react to some of them on The Dive next week. And the LCS will return this Friday with our Rivalry Week. We've got 100 Thieves versus TL. TL versus Cloud9, Cloud9 versus TSM. So prepare for a really good weekend. We'll see you then.